Welcome back to the Graham Stephan Show, and lately I've been getting into these financial documentaries on real estate, the stock market, banking, all of these interesting topics of why things go wrong. And this video is very interesting because it's why Americans can't keep their paycheck, especially the people making over $100,000 a year. For whatever reason, 51% of those people are living paycheck to paycheck. So is it a problem with them? Are they spending out of control? Or is it a problem with our economy? Well, we'll find out today on this video from CNBC as soon as you hit the like button and subscribe, because it helps out the entire channel tremendously. It's totally free to do that. Hit the like button, subscribe, and now let's begin.
More than half of Americans with an income of $100,000 a year or higher say they're living paycheck to paycheck. This may be the result of a sneaky behavioral phenomenon called lifestyle creep.
I think people hold these benchmarks in their mind. If I get this promotion or I make it to this age, then I can live this life, or then I deserve to have these things.
Yeah, you know what? It's called lifestyle creep, lifestyle inflation. There's a lot of ways to call it of the same thing. It's when you make a little bit more money, you spend a little bit more, and then you become used to that, and that becomes your baseline. Then you make a little more, spend a little more, make a little more, spend a little more, and your baseline is just constantly increasing. We as humans tend to get very used to things after about 6 months. Whatever situation you're in tends to normalize. Believe it or not, they did this study on lottery winners and people who became disabled. They were in an accident, maybe they lost a limb, something like this. Something very, abrupt happens. It could be very damaging to the person. So they looked at two extremes. The lottery winners were very happy for 6 months, and then they returned to their baseline. So if they were kind of miserable before, they're still miserable. Meanwhile, people who became disabled after 6 months felt just the same. Now, sure, for the first 6 months, they were very upset. They went through, sadness. They felt, some loss. But after 6 months, they were the exact same person. So if they were miserable before, they're miserable afterwards. If they're happy and positive, they're going to be just as happy and positive after 6 months. So 6 months is about the break-even point for a lot of people, which is why you get a raise, you're going to be excited, you're going to start spending more money. After 6 months, it's going to be normal. You'll feel the exact same, and then it takes another hit of a raise to go and spend more money. So that's this lifestyle creep, and you just got to stop it. You got to cut the head off the snake as soon as you can. Just acknowledge lifestyle inflation is not going to make you happier long term. Once you get the bare minimum of like having food, shelter, some sort of security that you're not going to be, on the streets, anything beyond that tends to be rather fleeting, and more money is not going to solve whatever underlying condition or, feeling you have. Money is going to really make no difference to that.
6 out of every 10 people surveyed said that paying for everyday expenses negatively impacted their mental health.
So what are you supposed to do with that? Oh yeah, I don't want to pay for things. Yeah, paying my rent just negatively affects my health. Paying my mortgage, It's called life. Listen, I get it if you're like, have $100 and you got to choose between food and medication, or like food, feeding myself, and feeding a child, like obviously. But this is so broad that for 60% of the people paying for anything, everyday expenses is negatively affecting mental health. I could think of a million other things that are also negatively affecting mental health.
It does take a lot of joy from just life and always being in this scarcity mindset.
What is this? She's a recovering super saver? What are we recovering from exactly? Are we inventing things just to overcome, to give ourselves a sense of accomplishment? What is this? I've never heard of her. I think we're calling too many things ailments. We're calling, I'm a recovered this, I recovered from saving too much. What on earth is this? All right, we're going to go with it. I'm just going to say she's a recovering super saver. Well, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully we figure out what on earth this is.
A lot of people have this scarcity mindset around money, and they spend so much of their lives saving. And so there can be this point where if you're constantly saving your whole life and then you finally reach this marker of financial success, or you feel like you finally deserve to enjoy your life.
That's okay. I get it. Okay. I want to say two things. Number one, I purposely delayed any lifestyle inflation until I was 30. I was 30 years old. Before then, I kept my expenses at $1,800 a month, regardless of how much I made. And at the time, I was making, 6 figures a year in real estate, multiple 6 figures a year in YouTube, at one point in the $1 million range, and I kept my spending at $1,800 a month. I was meticulous about keeping that number as low as humanly possible. Like, there was a point, and yeah, you could say this is unhealthy, but there's a point, you're making about $1 million a year, and I look at a Subway sandwich and think, I don't really need that. I got food at home because I'd rather eat eggs because that's cheaper. I went to an extreme on that, but I look back at that, I have zero regrets whatsoever. So, I really try my best. I keep my lifestyle inflation very under control, and I'm very purposeful about it. Now, on the other side, point two, I've definitely had a scarcity mindset for a long time when it's come to money. For whatever reason, I think everything's going to end tomorrow. I think, I just imagine YouTube just shutting off tomorrow. All my income sources go to zero. I can never work another day in my life again. I take that to an extreme. It's probably unhealthy. And then on top of that, I'm like, okay, what if everything goes to zero? At the same time the stock market drops by 80%, real estate collapses 80%, and I can't sell it. I come up with these stupid scenarios that are probably never going to happen, that's unhealthy, okay? But I think being mindful of lifestyle creep, of all the things that you could be doing to yourself, it's probably one of the better things. If you don't drink or smoke or, anything self-destructive, being worried about money and lifestyle creep is probably one of the things that's, not terrible, okay? It's probably not the worst thing.
Coming out of the pandemic, there was this strong desire to go out and splurge on experiences, maybe take a trip. This is often referred to as revenge spending or revenge travel.
I had the exact opposite experience. I had so much fun just being at home that afterwards, I didn't want to leave the house. Not as like out of fear or anything like that. I'm like, wow, I got really used to this. I really like it. If I don't have to leave the house, I could wear sweatpants. I'm wearing sweatpants. I could wear sweatpants all the time. It doesn't matter. I don't want to leave the house anymore. I get so used to it. But I get it. It's also, I understand the perspective of the situation's so bad, so making it a little worse for short-term enjoyment isn't going to make that big of a difference. It's like if you're in $300,000 of consumer debt, what's another $1,000 at that point? Then it's just like 300 versus 301. It doesn't matter. Let me spend $1,000, buy the new iPhone. So I understand that, but eventually you're going to have to dig yourself out somehow. It's either paying it off, in which case that $1,000 is going to be worth like $3,000 by the time you pay it off, or bankruptcy, which some situations I'm sure it makes sense.
There's something about spending a little more than we should that can feel like rebellious or bad, and it often can be a reaction to our family culture around money or parentified or internalized rules around what we can give ourselves.
I don't know why. For some reason, my brain pathways have short-circuited or like have crossed or something's wrong with me. I just associate, it sounds terrible. I'm opening up to you guys. I'm not crying. I just got an itch in my eye. I associate, for whatever reason, pain with spending money. Like anytime I spend money, I don't like it. It's like painful for me. And I know, yeah, you got to spend money when you're going to you got to eat. You got to have a roof over your head. But I just don't like spending. I don't know what it is. I just don't like it. It sends that pain vibes here. Like I don't get enjoyment going in like, oh, I'm gonna buy this thing. I don't have fun with doing that. I have fun with like buying assets, buying investments. I'm like, oh, I could buy this investment. I get so much joy from that. Or I could buy this thing that I think will appreciate in value. I don't get joy in like, oh, I want this pair of sunglasses. I'm gonna buy that so I could wear it or show off it. For whatever reason, just my brain pathways just don't connect on that. So, for better or worse, that's just the way my mind works.
There is lifestyle creep that's more like regular everyday things that if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're going without, like going to the dentist, getting oil changes on your car, right? There was a time in my life when oil change was just like not even a priority.
Yeah, I heard, by the way, and I'm sure there's going to be car enthusiasts out there who are going to flame me in the comments. I know they recommend an oil change every so odd miles. Most oils these days, I've been told, you're good to go way longer than what they say. Like they say, oh, replace it every, I don't know how many, 5,000, 6,000 miles. I've heard, the rumor is from like mechanics and stuff like that, you could go double that and you're just fine. Now, obviously, if you're doing like track days, driving really hard with like high performance cars, don't do that. But a normal everyday commuter cars, you could probably, push the oil change a little further out. Maybe. Don't take my word on it. Do your own research on that, because if I'm wrong, I don't want that to be on me. It's just what I've heard. It's the rumor, okay?
46% of Americans said they have a balance on their credit card because of an emergency expense, according to a creditcards.com survey. 10% coming from car problems, 11% to cover unexpected medical bills, and 10% for home repairs.
Yeah, the problem is they make it so easy to put on a credit card. They'll send you mailers. Credit card companies love for you to sign up and do exactly that. They hope that you have no savings and could just charge that $1,000 emergency to the credit card, and they get paid $200 a year in interest or more. Some of these interest rates in credit cards, 29% a year. For every $1,000 you have, $300 of that a year is going towards interest to credit card companies. I would say if you're in a position like that, probably better to keep a debit card. Credit cards, I think, should only be used by people who don't need the credit. So, then you could kind of game the system. Then you could use it to get points and cash back because you'd be spending the money anyway. But as an emergency fund, it's very expensive.
I would describe a super saver as someone who maybe is now in a position where they do have some sort of income, some sort of stability, but it's a certain mindset that keeps you in scarcity mode. My way of saving it was to hoard it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, it depends what hoarding is. To me, if it's like hoarding, if you're keeping a high interest bank account, you're making money with it, and you're investing it, that's not hoarding. Hoarding to me seems like keeping cash under a mattress. I don't know. I'd rather be financially scared than I would about, being too frivolous with it.
After working with a wealth coach, I continued to save money, but in a more intentional way, with the intention being of spending it.
Okay, so let me get this straight. She paid a wealth coach who told her to spend money on things. On what? You could be more intentional with the spending, but I don't know. There's no point in spending for the sake of spending it, I never understood that. Sure, if there's something that she really, really, really wants, it'll really add a lot of long-term value and she could afford it, fine, budget for it. But it just sounds like spending for the sake of spending. I'm probably the wrong person to talk to you about this, though.
It's about enjoying your life, but not being so focused in a future that hasn't come yet or too much focus on the present. The idea is having your cake and eating it too. You can have bites of your cake right now and then save some cake for later.
Yeah, I don't know. My thought on this is lifestyle inflation is real. Everybody is going to be susceptible to it. It's very difficult. You have to be very purposeful about your spending, to acknowledge that it's just wired in our brains to get used to things very quickly, and to really purposely make an effort not to spend the difference and to save it instead. My thing is that if you're going to have lifestyle inflation, which I've acknowledged, 100%, everyone's going to have lifestyle inflation. Just make sure it's sustainable. My thing is, for every $100 I invest, my lifestyle could go up by $200 a year. That's a withdrawal rate of basically 2%. So every $100,000, let's say, that's invested, $2,000 a year that I can increase my lifestyle, whether that be eating out more often, buying nicer stuff at the grocery store, buying clothes, doing things. So that's how I typically go about it. I spend 2% of, whatever I make, and that's my inflation there. So yeah, it works for me. It might not work for everybody, is my disclaimer. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. As always, feel free to add me on Instagram, subscribe, and don't forget, I also have a newsletter down below in the description. So if you want these topics in more detail than I'm able to provide in a YouTube video, and I do deep dives, it's really cool stuff. It's free. It's wholly free, so it costs you absolutely nothing. The link to that is down below in the description. You could also pick up some free fractional shares as well. I'll get a commission if you sign up for it, but you get some free fractional shares. Make some money doing that. It's, could be worth all the way up to a few grand. So the link to that is down below in the description. Thank you so much, and until next time.